Welcome back to the Belonging Place where we talk about connection, community, and belonging. And I can't think of anybody better to talk about these things than my guest, Dan Davis.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Dan. Welcome.
Thank you.
You are the embodiment of I'm obviously obsessed with belonging and telling people stories, and you are also. We share this
Yes.
passion. Before we jump into who you are, I don't remember our actual meet cute, like the first time we met. Do you remember the first time we met?
I don't think I remember either.
Okay, but I sometimes have crushes on organizations, and Stiry is one of the organizations that I early adopt, had a crush on, and kind of followed you guys and have loved this idea of I don't know if this is your official tagline, but stories that stir. That idea, just like the encapsulation of that idea and then what you guys have done with that has always been like a real passion of mine. I started the Belonging Place kind of because I was obsessed with StoryCorps. Have you heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea of capturing people's stories.
Yeah,
And so we
absolutely.
totally, like what you do and what I do, we just love this idea. So I'm so excited to have you here and ask some questions about what you've learned about that process. I came later than you to the journey of actually collecting those, and I'm interested in kind of swapping
Awesome.
some thoughts about that. But before we jump into all of that, there might be people that come to the podcast and are like, who is Dan Davis? So give us your elevator pitch on who you are. Just a short, there's a lot of you. There's a lot to you.
There's
but
a lot of Dan Davises
short,
in the world. I don't know if
and
you knew that. My name is very common, but
for sure. But
short pitch.
The Dan Davis in Utah, Stiry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just a regular person that is ambitious, trying to, change the world. And took me a long time to figure out what that, would look like for me, and always been an entrepreneur. Always loved starting and creating things. And I just feel like it took a long time for me to figure out what I was meant to do,
Got it.
not just what I could do. And it really came into play 10 years ago when I started Stiry, because I figured out this God-given gift I had of connecting with people
Okay.
was what I was supposed to, do for a living. I just had no idea how to do it. And I actually remember telling my wife, hey, I feel inspired to start another business. This is after one business had failed, after I had worked for a few different people and their businesses weren't going well. And then, I was on my own. We had no health insurance, no job, nothing. And I'm like, hey, let's start another business. And we were paying off debt from the past one. And I think it was just that moment where she said, you should do this. And she had that same inspiration actually the same day. I was scared to death to tell her, because I'm like, we have, like I said, no health insurance, no job. We had just had our second kid. And I was terrified to tell her, but our relationship is built on trust. I'm like, I got to tell her that this is what I feel inspired to do. And she had that same inspiration that same day.
Oh,
so when I came home, she
Timing.
was just like, yep, let's do it. And we celebrated, and this is just the story of our lives. We celebrated the idea that we were moving into what we felt, called to do. She's like, well, what's the business? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea.
And thus
she's like,
it begins.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was, for me, what I discovered during that time being unemployed. I tell people all the time, if you have an opportunity to be unemployed for, even if it's a few months, to find yourself,
Totally.
just take that opportunity and seize it, because that's when I figured out my greatest gift was not marketing, was not business, was not all these things I was taught in business school, wasn't all these things that I learned necessarily, from, just my education and life experiences and all the things that I tried to teach myself. It was, oh my gosh, I had this God-given thing. My spiritual being was meant to connect with people and help create those connections for other people. And it actually came through being unemployed, through meeting other people that actually during that time told me, what are you doing applying for a bunch of jobs right now? You should be, starting your own business again. And it should be about what you're good at, and that's connecting with people.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's me. If you know me, we're immediately friends.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. We all have those people in our lives that are they're friends with everybody, but there's not a deep connection. I feel like I have an opportunity with anybody I meet in 5 minutes. I mean, it's like how our relationship started, to just get real deep about life and uncover the things that matter, and then all of a sudden we're advocates for life. So
Yeah. And I think, Dan, or I'm going to get into this a little bit, but I think there are some things that have happened in your life that also contribute to you not necessarily having the bandwidth to just like snorkel in life. You're like a scuba diver. You're like, oh, here we go. We're going in.
without a mask sometimes, but
Yeah. I mean, I think your soul already had that, but there's some things in your life, your lived story that have, I think, contributed to your, maybe this is what I'm going to say. I don't know what you'd call it, but like things and people and life and health and things are temporary. And so like when grab it with both hands and just like love deep and hard,
yeah,
right? Which we,
yeah,
which I absolutely share. Okay. We're going to jump off with one of my favorite books, a quote from my favorite books,
great book.
Donald Miller's A Million Miles in a Thousand Years. And like his tagline is how I learned to live a better story. So of course
Love
I'm
it.
using this. And this may not be like a direct quote, but it's like a synthesis quote of his. I'm gonna read the quote and then I'm just gonna ask you to talk about what you feel or what you think about it. So here's the quote. The kind of stories we like best are the ones where the hero has to overcome something.
Hmm. It's a good one. We read that book as a team.
Oh, did you?
I read it, um and yeah, meanwhile didn't know what I was about to face in my own life. Read that one more time. I want to
Yeah.
hear it one more time.
The kind of stories we like best are the ones where the hero has to overcome something.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like the people that are most relatable are not the ones that find success early,
Ugh.
find success very easily, fall into something. I remember
Given something.
given
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
yeah,
I remember growing up. We had enough to provide for our family, absolutely, but I didn't feel like there was anything that was handed to me. My dad went through and mom went through financial struggles, and we had to eat food storage for a little while, and I still remember that. And I actually look at that now as a huge gift that
totally.
my parents gave me, that we survived, not just survived, we still thrived during those times. And I've had health problems since I was 10. I've had lots of injuries. I played competitive sports, and it seemed like I just hit a wall so many different times, and had, businesses fail and crash down. And like, I always told myself I wasn't going to be that, entrepreneur that had his first business fail. And that was me. And, just so many things over and over again. I've haven't had people steal from me multiple times. I've had jobs not work out. There's so many things. And I'm like, that's, that is life.
Mm.
That is everyone's story, in some form or fashion. Even the people that seem to find success easy, there's something that's gone, awry.
Yeah, I call this our becoming. Just like in our becoming, it isn't like a linear progress or even
Never.
a linear digress, I would say.
Yeah.
Most people are, doing this ups and downs. And I think a lot of people are spending time in their lives trying to figure out like how to get to that upward
Yeah.
swing, and they're
Yeah.
missing their life in the ups and downs. And this is where I think most most movies, most stories, I think of so many of the stories that you guys have done at Stiry, and that arc is usually some regular person, and then something happens that they have to overcome, and they get the opportunity to be resilient in that, right? Hopefully fail forward or not. And then usually that story becomes less about the person who's doing the overcoming, and it becomes about everybody else around
Right.
them, even though they think they're doing,
Yep.
we're very myopic in our lives and we're like, this is what I am experiencing. But what we find out when we pull the camera back is that as the hero of your story, the way that you interact with your obstacles talks a lot about your character, but it also tells a lot about your story around you and how people can show up for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in with kind of a big question, but when you look over your life, knowing that and knowing that arc, what's been one of the hardest like pain points or struggles that you've encountered in your life? And kind of, just because we don't just want to talk about hard things, like what have you learned from
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I was thinking actually in your previous comment just about how, like, if you don't have a year that just rocks you in some way, then I don't feel like that's a growth year. We're coming into this new year in 2026, and I look at last year, and it was one of our best years ever for our company and best years ever in a lot of different categories. There's also one of the worst and
So
most
hard.
difficult, years. And I look at that and I think about our definition of success and becoming, what you're doing with this podcast. And I just think if you're not getting rocked in some way each month, or each week, whatever it is, and taking that roller coaster ride with grace and looking at those things that are, rocking your world and doing something with it, you're probably not growing as fast as God maybe, sees that you're able to.
Putting yourself out there. No,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's really important. And I look back at my story to answer your question,
Yeah.
and I just think I'm pretty sure every year of my life has been like that for longer than I can remember.
Gosh.
And some of those times it's business related, some of those times it's, relationship, marriage, family, kids that are struggling. We have 4 kids, and just when we think we know what we're doing, all of a sudden one of our kids gets rocked in some way. But the thing that softened me, I tell people, like, it softened this mortal experience for me. It softened my spirit was my health crash
Yeah.
6 years ago. And I think that's what taught me to realize I am not in control. Doesn't matter how hard you work, how much effort you put into all of this. At some point you have to become effortless and let God take the wheel, because, and I know it sounds really cheesy to say that, but at some point you realize I am not in complete control of my destiny.
Yeah, specifically, I would say, and I want to dig in a little bit to this. I think when the body is weak, the
Yeah.
actual physical body, like
Yeah.
our bodies can do amazing things and our brains can do amazing things, but
Absolutely.
you were, I'll say, gifted. Maybe that's too much of a word.
No, it's not.
An opportunity to see what's going to happen in your world if your body, the thing that I'm sure you valued, and you said you had been sick since you were young, so that you probably had more of appreciation than maybe the average
Yeah.
person of what it felt like to be healthy, right? Dan, for people who are new to your story, because you've told this story and it's
Yeah.
been around a lot, but take us a little bit more, like, so what happened, and then we can talk a little bit about the maybe not even the other side, but like the learning process, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of what happened.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it started when we traced it back with my doctor back to when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
I had my first episodes of some neurological things, some blood flow related things, some connective tissue things across my entire body. And it was fainting, it was passing out, it was getting really, really weak all of a sudden. It was frequent injuries, all these things that just weren't
But when
normal
you're
for a
younger, you didn't
kid.
have a name for it.
There was
You were
I
just
mean,
experiencing it.
doctors didn't even know what some of this
Okay.
stuff was back then. So my mom really advocated for me. She really advocated for me, doctor to doctor, and just nobody really knew what was going on. So I was some of my doctors like, you're just an active kid and this happens. And I got dismissed, and so I just thought that's normal. And then into my 20s and 30s is when it really got bad. And I ignored it for a really long time because I thought, oh, I'm just an active person. This is just part of the mortal journey. Well, come to find out, I had some really serious conditions that, if not treated, I would die, and that came to fruition in my 30s. And it came through a blood clot in my leg that wouldn't go away.
Gosh,
And my doctors were like, "What is going on?" So we went through cancer, different tests and things like that. So that was really scary. And me and my wife were like devastated that that was a possibility. Then when they couldn't figure that out, they thought, "Oh, there's something we're missing that's even,
yeah. Worse.
potentially worse." And we need to figure this out right away. And I told my wife, I remember being outside of this clinic after getting a CT scan, and I called her and I said, I think I'm going to not wake up one day and they're not going to know what I had. And that was just how serious it was. And I said, I literally feel like I'm dying. And it was devastating for us because that's literally what I thought the inevitability was going to be. And through a series of a lot of miracles.
I was gonna say, maybe just touch because one of the miracles that stands out for me, because I'm only aware of so many of the miracles that
Yeah.
happened, Dan, was how you found your doctor that helped you. Maybe just
Yeah.
tell us that of,
Yeah.
if you can, of one of those miracles,
And
because I
that
know you've shared that already,
Yeah,
so
and
not
that's
too
okay, and
personal.
that's the effortless part where I was putting so much effort into going to specialist after specialist, so many tests, and just devastating us financially. And then it was through my company and all these stories that I was telling. One in particular, Kim White, our feature film "Breaking into Beautiful." We
Which I
were
want to pause and just have a shout out that is on Angel
Yes,
now.
on Angel
Yeah.
Studios. Yep, and like that project changed my life forever. I felt inspired to do that project. We had no funding for it, no major plan, but Kim and I met through Imagine Dragons. They've been one of my clients for years, and we met at a gala. And I knew I had to tell her story, and I thought it was just because I was feeling inspired to tell her story and get her story out there, and
Right.
that was a big part of it. I had no idea that that would save my life. And making a very long story short, the miracle was when I was interviewing one of her doctors and not doing very well at the time. I kind of jokingly said, "Hey, you should try to figure me out. I'm a medical mystery." And that doctor asked me, "Hey, what's going on?" And I told her in a series of 10 minutes, a 10-minute conversation, she's like, "I know what you have." And I was like, "No
No
way.
way.
There's no way, that this is how I figure out what I have." She listed off all these what's called vascular compression syndromes, meaning I have lack of blood flow to my entire body, including my organs. I was like, that sounds like something I could have, but I don't know. A connective tissue disorder that's genetic that my sister has. And then something called POTS, which is a autonomic nervous system problem. And she listed all these syndromes, like 8 to 10 of them, and she's like, "I think you have all of these." And I was like, "That's nice." Every doctor's looked at me, for hours and hasn't been able to figure this out. And she said, "I'll look at your scans tonight after the interview," because she was in my hospital system. She could pull it up at home she was a radiologist. And she sent an email to me. And me and my wife were at Target. I make this joke all the time because I'm like, that's what married couples do. They go to Target on date night because that's exciting, right? To just run errands, get things done because you don't have time to do it.
Free.
Yeah. And it's still great, right?
Right.
But anyway, my wife's looking at something, and I get this email that's coming in from this doctor, and she says, "I was right. I can see the problem in your kidney, and your kidney, basically wasn't providing blood flow to my heart,
Mm,
and that's why I felt like I was dying."
mm.
And I just in the middle of Target was just like, whoa, because just think about that. And I always trace it back. It goes back 20 years. If I wouldn't have gone on a church service mission, I wouldn't have met Harry Reynolds. He's a good friend of mine. He's the brother of Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons. If I wouldn't have met Harry, I wouldn't have met Dan Reynolds. I wouldn't have been doing their stories for their nonprofit, Imagine Dragons nonprofit. And I wouldn't have been at that gala and met Kim. So you just think about that. And then I meet her doctor by doing her documentary, and I'm like, we are not in control. There is no coincidences. All those people I had built those connections with and relationships with on a deep level saved my life. And that was what I'm talking about when I say I have that ability to connect with somebody. It's not like, "Hey, pat myself on the back. I
Totally.
have this great ability. I can connect." And it's like, no, that's a God-given gift, spiritual gift. And it manifested itself with Kim. And meeting her within a few minutes, she said, "I've been looking for somebody to tell my story." And she just knew it was me. And I knew I was supposed to tell her story. And away we went to tell her story. And so I look at that and I'm like, that God given gift, that spiritual gift actually saved my life.
I
And it was
just,
in the workings for 20 years.
yeah. I want to pull back the curtain just a minute because, um, as somebody who has followed you, followed Story, followed Kim, it's been fascinating to me in a world where I always tell my guests, we're going to come and we're going to talk about your becoming, not your arrival.
Yeah.
This is my big thing.
I haven't arrived
I,
yet. I don't even know what that looks
right.
like.
But you get what I'm saying. A lot of people have done things, or we could
Yeah.
say like, I did this, or I have this. These are what I produced, right? And if we pull back, just like use one of the stories that you have at Stiry, and the amount of time and the amount of uh movie, what are those called? Like competitions or showcases
Yeah,
or
the festivals and
festivals.
stuff. Yeah.
So I've been to a lot of those. I was like, oh, I'm a big Story fan, but I'm a big Kim fan. I'm gonna follow those. And the amount of times before it could get out somewhere where people could watch it, I was like, when are you
It's
guys gonna let the
incredible.
public
Yeah.
watch this? Right? You had big like screenings, but it was like until years to get to Angel
Yeah.
Studios where we can now just like go and like guests, any
Yeah.
person who hears about it can just go and get on Angel. This example, the reason why I'm pulling the curtain back is I think that like this is so indicative of our life and our story. And you're sitting here a lot healthier than 6 years ago. I mean, I remember coming to Story and you were in a specialized like chair
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
could,
couldn't sit up for 18 months.
yeah, where you, I mean, to the degree of sitting here, I'm saying,
Yeah.
you know, I think sometimes for people that are in the middle of their journey, that like in the chair, it's hard for them when people are sitting where you're sitting and looking back. And I just want to sit and be like, I remember, Dan. I mean,
Yeah.
you lived it, but I remember being someone on the outside who loved you and was just like, I don't know what's going to happen, because you also were like, I don't know, I think I might die. But there was a big mystery for a long time around what was going on, and you just seemed to get worse and worse and
Yeah.
worse. And
Yeah.
for the people around you who loved you that also didn't have an answer, it wasn't just the miracle of the doctor. It seemed like you know how sometimes people say death by 1,000 cuts. I felt like it was like a miracle by, I don't know, 1,000 like stars. It was
Yeah.
just like lots of things conspired for your good. And
Yep.
so we talked a little bit about how things were hard, but how does it feel to have that happen? To
Yeah.
have in your when you were talking about God and like maybe effortless, how does that feel on the receiving end?
Yeah. I just think about the the dots connecting, and when you're in the middle of it, when you're in that chair, that's a perfect example. I for 18 months did Zoom calls. I didn't even go to appointments. I did Zoom calls either with a wedge pillow on a couch trying to sit up the best that I could, or in that zero gravity chair. And it was because I wasn't getting blood flow to my heart when I sat up
Yeah.
and stood, and so it was really dangerous. And I just think about those times where you're so angry and you're so mad. That was my initial reaction so much of the time was, I'm doing what God inspired me to do, and I'm still gonna die. I'm a loving father, husband, and I still might die. I'm telling other people's stories that work out. My story is not working out. And I had a lot of bitterness, a lot of anger. And me and my wife, many, many times said to each other, and I still remember coming home with these emotions, they're so fresh still, and saying, why doesn't it work out for us? Why can't it work out for us? And I didn't know God was working on it, even when I wasn't working on it, right? And that's the effortless part. And the dots were connecting, I just couldn't see them.
Gosh.
And that process of you becoming something that's ready for those things is really important, because if I didn't listen to God and the Spirit and what I was meant to become, I would have actually, I don't know if I'd be here.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that. As
Like,
watching that,
not
like,
not I shouldn't say I don't know.
I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that's
That
real.
was a reality. Like, you
Yeah,
saw me in those
totally.
moments, and I there was, man, there were so many times where I got in my car, I had to lay my seat back because I couldn't sit up. I still drove to work every day, which in hindsight, I'm like, I'm not sure that was a good idea. But I went in and I showed up for myself every day. And I told God, I'm here, I'm gonna do the work, even though I am mad at you.
Yeah.
And I still remember driving into the back of our first office that you've been to, and sitting in my car and just saying, I don't know if this is gonna work out for me. Like, I really don't. Like, how is it gonna work out for me? Because right now there's no possible way it could. And those miracles were not this like the flashy things you see on
Totally.
social media where somebody shows up with, hey, we're going to pay off your house, we're going to renovate it, we're going
Mm-mm.
to somebody has a kidney for you. Like there were no big moments
Mm-mm.
like that. It was a series of a bunch of moments where I felt inspired to like just make a little switch or go meet this person when it didn't seem logical. That's the scary part, is all of these things that I did, all these motions, these decisions were movements forward that were very illogical.
Yeah.
And it scares me to think that if I didn't listen to a few of those, I wouldn't be watching these moments with my kids. I wouldn't be there for my wife, Caroline, and my business wouldn't have been able to continue to tell stories. And so that's, if I was to give advice to anybody, it would just be follow that inspiration regardless of the cost.
Yeah, and I would say listening to this part of your story, there's so many other parts of your story, Dan, but um it never like it'll never hurt you to just love and be and connect deeply.
Yeah,
Connections
never.
like have times and seasons, right? But those times and seasons like you just described, I think work together for your good, right? The world will conspire for your good is sort of like this idea.
Yeah.
You're a person of faith. So you're saying like God will like weave that together. I believe that as well too. Well, thank you for telling that. As a person, I also you may not know this about me. I don't talk about this a lot, but as a kid, I was also really sick. I didn't know what was wrong. My eyes would like swell shut. I grew up in the 80s, and allergists and people and doctors weren't that common. You didn't like
Yeah.
nobody really knew what this was. You sort of just like, take some, I don't know. And I went and got tested when I was like 10, and I had like 80 of the 81 things that I was allergic to.
Mm.
And the doctor's like, "Man, you should probably be one of those kids in one of those bubbles."
Yeah. Yeah.
And just have like my whole life really struggled with. I have like a autoimmune. I overproduce histamine, and so there's lots of inflammation, lots of stuff, and just sort of like feel. I love that you were authentic and we're just honest because a lot of people don't talk about that. Just like I jokingly say to people, like, no one's ever at my funeral going to be like, she never complained, because I am a little bit of a just like, I throw my fists up sometimes and I
Yeah.
wrestle with God sometimes. And I'm like, what? Like, I just have too much to do in my life to have this sick body, basically.
100%. This is
My
really
spirit,
inconvenient.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's too like strong and too
Yeah.
excited, and my desire to use my agency for good is too
Yeah.
loud for me to have this like,
Yeah.
and through my life, I feel like God or the spirit was like, and that was on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, you have a sick body because it will slow you down. It will make you stop and think.
Yeah.
It will help you to like really value like I don't think that I'm to the place where in my life where I'm like so grateful for all the problems I've had with my body, but I'm certainly grateful for the opportunities it has given me to, I think, mainly to like sit and I know what it feels like to be really healthy, and I know what it feels like to not be healthy. I mean, you can relate to this.
Yeah.
And to be able to be more grateful than I think the average person on when I have my healthy days. And my healthy days aren't like everybody else's healthy days, but
Yeah.
they're my healthy days, you
Yeah.
know? Um, I I don't know if I've told this story in the podcast before, but when I was like 10 or 11 or 12 in grade school, I went to the bathroom one time and one of the girls was kind of crying, and I looked over at her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she had lost her eyelashes like in the sink. She had alopecia, but I didn't know what alopecia was back then, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't even think like she knew or had a name for it. But she's like, "Oh yeah," and she was putting like Vaseline on her eyes because your
Mm.
eyelashes need to be like help. And it was like at that moment and later that I was like, man, I'm grateful for my eyelashes, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful for my elbows, and I'm grateful for my
Something so
ankles,
simple.
and I'm grateful for my, things, my knees, my
Yeah.
thumbs, my like things that I never thought about until I was really sick, and the things that I like took for granted weren't working. And I was like, okay, grateful that like, um, I don't know. I don't know if you can relate, but when it comes to your body and your ability, any lessons that you have been learning or in the process of learning?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had many of those eyelash moments, like where I've just like totally stopped. And this is what I tell people. When you have an experience like I've had, and others that have been to that brink of death, and that's a real possibility. There's something that it can either change you for the better or make you go a different direction. I've seen both sides
Yeah.
of that. I've seen people that I know very well that have not let those experiences change them in a more positive way.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. But for me, I think I had been around enough people's stories and, just through my line of work doing documentaries, through challenges I'd faced and others had faced around me. Cancer's been a big part of my journey, losing family members, friends to suicide. Like I've been through around all these really hard things. And I learned through all those hard things that you have to slow down.
Mm.
My personality is not that way at all. I was always, when I played competitive basketball, my coach used to say, you fly around the court. And it was just because they're like, you have a knack for the ball. You're just everywhere. And it's like, that's my personality is I'm going to go 100 miles an hour when
And you have
it's,
that ADHD revved up engine kind of a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like whatever I do, that's what I feel like makes me a great entrepreneur and also a bad entrepreneur sometimes. But it caused me to slow down. And this is what I would tell people is my experience taught me to live with my spirit on the surface, my soul on the surface. Not to just be this mortal body having a mortal experience, but like a spiritual being, this incredible human that has unique traits, and all of us are. This isn't just
Totally.
me. This is everybody. It taught me to live with my spirit on the surface, and as soon as I did that, I started to see and feel things I didn't think were possible on this mortal journey.
Yeah.
I started to see the littlest things. I remember sitting at our old house, watching each one of my kids eat their cereal. And they're all eating it so uniquely. And it changed my perspective forever because I started to see their spirit and how unique each individual person is. And a bowl of cereal taught me that. And then I've watched my kids, the way they wake up in the morning, who wakes up first, what they do first. Some of them come and give me a hug. Others look out the window. Others go to find the dog. Others want to, listen to music. And I think that's their unique, spirit. And I see that in everybody else. And I appreciate those things. And I love those things that some people might call quirks or, weird things.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And then I started to see these other things that were like, whoa, I was able to start to connect the dots for my life and other people's lives around me because I could see how God was working in their lives. And I was in tune with their, who they were becoming, which makes me a terrible person for hiring people because I see the potential in everybody. And some people aren't really ready to step into that. And
Yeah.
so I've, since allowed my team to do that for me. But it's because I have this emotion that wells up in me, and my employees know this, and my contractors, everybody that works for me. I'll cry on set, I'll cry in an interview, I'll cry in our performance reviews, in a team meeting, whatever, because I see how beautiful life could be for everybody else around me, and when they're not fully living that way, it breaks something inside of me. And so now I'm invested in you. I want to help you see that yourself.
Yeah.
And once you catch that with me, then it's like we're like no longer like doing this ever with business or with personal relationships. We're like, let's go and align together. I'm there to like help you become whatever you're supposed to become.
I want to say an amen to that because I have been a recipient of that. I a few years ago I had a friend be like, "What's the deal with you and Stiry?" I was like, "We're like dance partners." I love them. I feel like I got picked up by you, Dan, and I don't ever want to be let go. Like I do feel that. I feel like you collect people's spirits, not just like that who they are. You're just like, okay, your potential to do good. What do we do? And if we can't do it here, where can we blow wind in your sails?
Yeah.
Where can I help grow your good? Like, or
Yeah.
you talk a lot about people's like passions and purpose,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you write about this and you talk about, I think that you love to help people. It's like felt that you're just like, I don't just want to be your friend or I don't want to be your associate. I want to help you find your purpose.
Yeah, and I want to be a part of your life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Okay. So with that in mind, you answered my second question already without asking. So amazing. you have been making films and helping people and organizations tell their stories for a long time. Um, and I think you did documentaries and you were filming and stuff before you did Stiry. You've done film for a long time. Um, this is kind of like a cheater question for me to get for me and then for audience to sort of say like, you know how sometimes you're just like, I wish I could just tap that into my veins, like what someone's earned over a lifetime. So
Yeah.
this is one of those
Yeah.
questions. um, what are some key takeaways that you have learned being behind the scenes, particularly whether you're filming, directing, whether you're, I know you have producers and people that work with you, but like over the years sitting with people time and time again, let me on the side say this. As a therapist, I sit right and have people tell their stories, I
Yeah,
guess, in a
absolutely.
different way, time and time again. And while everybody is unique, there are some themes that come out for people. So this is my question. Sitting, listening to people's stories, all kinds of stories, organizational stories, personal stories, health stories, overcoming stories, any key like takeaways that you would be willing to share that you have learned or yeah.
Mm. So many. I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, I'm the person that benefits the most from Sturry. Like, we've told over 600, maybe close to 700 stories now over 10 years. And I'm like, I've gotten that many perspectives just like infused into my soul. Like, they might as well hook me up to
Yeah.
an IV when I show up to
That's what I'm
interview
saying.
those
This is why I want
people.
to glean.
Like,
I know it's hard, but we want to
it's
glean
just
a little.
and it's inside me. And I also tell people I have hundreds of couches across the world that I could sleep on because these people become family. They
Totally.
are like, we are connected on a soul to soul basis. So, I mean, that to answer that question, like, every person we've told a story on has taught me that you really don't know what someone's going through, even if you've heard their story before, until you sit in that moment with them and ask the tough questions or ask the deep questions. And for me, all of the people I've sat with, look at it this way. If you were driving down the street and you saw all your neighbors and you knew who they were and you think that you know their story, their kids, and this family has 3 kids and the husband does this for work and the wife does this for work and this is their background, this is where they're from, and you start to think that that's their story.
Mm,
Their story is not a list of chronological events or accomplishments or these things that have happened in their life. Their story is what's going on behind closed doors when they're alone and they're thinking about life.
gosh.
And we get to ask those questions that they get to share for the first time many times, where they're like, no one's ever asked me this. This has been a thought in my mind and in my soul that I've never spoken out loud. And what I've seen consistently is that I'm wrong about every single person. No,
Okay.
no joke.
Mm,
I could go into an interview, and prep as much as possible and say, "Oh, I got these great questions to ask them, and I'm excited to hear their answers," thinking I know what they're gonna say. And then I ask those questions, and I'm like it just knocks me back, like your whole being. And you said earlier, stories that stir. I love
yeah.
that you think about, because that's what Sturry stands for,
Yeah.
is like it stirs something in your soul where
Totally.
you're like, it wrecks you, it opens you up, and all of a sudden you're open and they're open. That's where that like beautiful magic happens. And so that's what I would say is, you don't know someone's story until you sit in that space with them and can have that deep of a conversation. And the cool thing about that is now you're connected for life.
Mm.
I believe that we're connected forever,
Hmm.
but even if it was just connected for a short time in your life, you have something to gain and they have something to gain. And when somebody shares those things with you, you get to take them with you for the rest of your life and you do things differently. So I would say I've been wrong about every person.
Yeah.
And it's not about judgment. It's not about, what I think they should be. It's about who they are becoming.
Hmm.
And all of these people that have told their stories through Story, I would say they're figuring out that they like who they're becoming through those obstacles.
Mm.
And I learned that myself when I told one of these stories of these storytellers. And I was having one of those moments behind my office where I went without my employees being around me and just sat in my car and feeling sorry for myself, where one of those storytellers called me and started asking me questions.
Yeah. Flip the script.
Flip the script totally. And she said, if you had an opportunity to be healed tomorrow, would you do it? That question ripped my soul open, wrecked me in so many different ways, and opened me up to share something with her that I didn't know was my truth.
Mm.
And that truth was, I responded to her very quickly without even thinking. It was like my soul spoke before my mind was
Yeah.
ready to speak. And I said, no. She said, why? And I said, I like who I'm becoming.
Mm.
And that's what my health stuff, the devastation of my health stuff, the really challenging conversations with my family about what to do if something were to happen, all those conversations with my attorney about, okay, let's figure out, what does end of life look like in case something happens, all those things that were devastating. I was still liking who I was becoming through that process. And so that's what I've learned about all these storytellers that I've sat in their living room, whether it's me interviewing or one of my team members directing. I've been able to sit there and gather those key moments for them that have helped them understand that they like who they're becoming because of those obstacles, because of those experiences. And that's what I'm saying. You have to embrace those, or else you just live life. And I don't think we're just meant to live life.
No, I'm gonna dig just a little, Dan, because your situation required you to be on the receiving end. You had to
Yeah.
rely on others. And from what I know about you and the parts of you that I share deeply in my soul, my ADHD soul, I cannot imagine that that was easy for you. Not that I think that you're a person that's not like willing to receive, but you just want to run through life and you just want to like do it on your terms and you want to like
Yeah.
make it happen, is what I call it. You're the make it happen person. So talk to me a little bit about that, when life
Yeah.
sort of just literally puts you in a capacity, business, family, relationship, where you just cannot show up in the way that you want to show up. And how did that go and how did that change you?
Oh man, I'm keeping myself from sobbing because my life has been, I feel like 10 years ago when I started this business telling people stories, I was so focused on serving everyone else. And to the point where it wasn't good sometimes for my own family. And I was giving, 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 and getting these stories out to the world, and we were helping so many people. And I'm like, man, I'm fulfilled. This is what I'm supposed to do. And then 4 years into my business, this is 6 years ago, when everything crashed for me, I was like, wait a minute. Like, I'm one of those people that I'm telling stories on. And I haven't shared my story, and I never told anybody what I was going through. It was so private, in fact, that one of my friends called me and was ticked. They said, you never told me this. And they were worried I was gonna die, and they didn't even know I
No.
was
Didn't it
sick.
was, yeah. How dare you take that away from me
Yeah.
as your friend?
And
Yeah.
and that was a wake-up call for me. That person actually works for Stiry now. But I look at that, and that script totally flipped for me. And the reason I'm holding back all these tears, and I use the word sobbing because I've sobbed a lot about this. I had earthly heavenly angels show up over and over again. And it was because of all those people I had told stories on and served. It was people in high school I hadn't talked to in 20 years that were donating thousands of dollars for my life-saving, procedures. It was people that helped me get to medical appointments. It was people I ran into at the hospital when I shouldn't have been driving myself that said, hey, if you need a ride, you call me. It was strangers. It came from so many different directions. And what a humbling experience,
Right?
where it was like, oh, I I physically, mentally cannot do this on my own. It is not possible. My life is in God's hands and all of these other people's hands, because I won't be able to feed my family. I won't be able to, you know, I can't do these operations on myself that will preserve my life. I can't do
Run my
everything at
business.
Stiry.
Yeah.
I was gone for months once, and weeks at a time for recovery from different things, or travel to just do whatever we could to save my life. And my team just kept moving the mission forward. And then there were people that started GoFundMe's and all these things that I thought, ooh, I'm good. I don't want to be on the other side of a
Yeah,
GoFundMe. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
fine donating and donating anonymously to help this person that needs me. And all of a sudden my face is on a GoFundMe. My story was on a GoFundMe and my team put together something just beautiful because we had documented some things along the way. And being on the receiving end of that, I woke up the next morning and in 24 hours, less than 24 hours, they had raised all the money for the GoFundMe.
I remember
Um,
that. It's
and
like,
it allowed me to travel to Germany to get the testing I needed. And I look at that and I think it wasn't about the money. Like that served us greatly at that time. We would have been even more wrecked without that. It was about all those people that showed up for me. If I would have said no to that phone call of the friend that called me and said, "What do you need?" and not told him what
right,
I
right,
needed,
yeah.
um, I wouldn't that wouldn't have happened. And I just think there's dozens of experiences like that where I had to really sit and go, okay, I got to be willing. And then I learned this really, really key lesson to wrap this thought up. The key lesson I learned during that time was, who am I to deny all these people the opportunity to serve me and my family and the blessings that will come to them as a result? Who am I when there's an opportunity right in front of those people to serve me, to deny them that opportunity? And as soon as broke down that wall, I tell people how I'm really doing. I'm very open about it.
Yes,
And
you
I
do.
allow people to come bring us dinner.
Yeah.
I allow people to take me to lunch. I allow people to, we have a neighbor right now that's my nurse that comes and hooks up my IVs. She's offered to help multiple times. I just allow her to do that. Um, that's that's our job too.
Yeah,
It's
I
not just to
I
fight
love
through it.
so much that I think we have a perceived notion that our purpose in life is to serve others. Like we have to do the doing. We have
Yeah.
to be the producers. We have to be the even in our humility of like God will place us in the places where our passion and our purpose will show up. We have to do the doing. And I think you described perfectly. I think, and it's difficult for people to be on the receiving end, and that's also purpose driven, and it's also connection driven. And I loved looking at both sides of the coin of Dan. That's like that, like you were gifted this opportunity to receive rather than be the one doing the good, and both of those are in purpose, right? And both of those are for the purpose of this podcast, the power of connection,
Yeah.
right? Like, and
Yeah.
that weaving our hearts and souls with other people's hearts and souls. I think the outcropping of that, or like what happens, not the purpose of doing it, but what happens is it saves lives, or
Yeah.
I call it the safety net. It's your safety net.
Mm,
It's what
yeah.
happens when things go wrong. Those people come in and like, they're woven into your tapestry of life. So they're like ready to catch you, or they're
Yeah.
ready to like,
Yeah.
and then if you're willing to receive, then there's this like the circle of life kind of
Yeah.
thing going
Yeah.
on, right? Yeah.
And nobody is self-sustaining. That's the bottom line. As much as you think that you're independent and you can do it on your own, like you have to have other people, God, heavenly and earthly angels to help you get through all of these difficult things and not just survive, like to thrive.
Flourish. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will survive in this life and just get through things, and at the end of their life they'll go, that was what life was about.
Yeah.
And those people are usually like, I can do it. And I think some of it's pride, but it's also this innate nature we have to be
Totally. Make it
self-sustaining.
happen. Let's
But
go.
none of us are self-sustaining. So why push against, that wall when on the other side of the wall there's all these people that are like trying to break down the wall to help you. And the wall was not created by them, it was created by you.
Totally. And I love that reciprocity that's like necessary in real, true relationships, right? You can't just stand on one side and be like, I'm giving, giving, giving.
Yeah.
That person needs to be able to give back for that like true connection to
Yeah.
happen. Well, you described this as a gift, and I think it is a spiritual gift of yours, but um as someone who spends a lot of time creating safe spaces for people to share their stories, and then you're capturing them, um, can you maybe, I like to sort of like zoom out on these podcasts. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you do that, or why? What's the purpose and point of that? Like, this is something that I, like, as a therapist and as a person, like, feel is one of my callings in life too, is to create safe spaces for people to be vulnerable. But I know how I do it on my end and how I experience on my end, but I'm very curious, Dan, for you to talk a little bit about that for you.
Yeah, I think it came through people leading by example. I think it came through people that really actually did care about my life and me realizing how much they cared. And creating a safe space is not casual formalities where you just say, "How are you doing?" And I had asked that question to a lot of people, and I had given a lot of generic answers for a generic question.
Mm.
And I think that's the way we as humans, mortals, act most of the time, is just formalities. And actually recently sent this out to our all the men in our congregation, because I saw it as a problem in my community where we're in a small town now, a lot of hardworking people that believe that you should just be able to will your way through anything and you don't need
Pull
help.
yourself up by your
Yeah.
bootstraps.
And so our message to them was change one word in that question. How are you doing? How are you really doing?
Mm.
And that's our mission and goal for 2026 is ask every person you come in contact with, how are you really doing? That's how you check in on each other. That's how you create a safe space. If they give you a generic answer, ask another question. And I feel like that's where the safe spaces are created is I actually do really want to know how you're doing. I'm not asking you because I feel obligated to check this thing off, in my phone. I have a checklist of people I want to check in and boom, I'm
Yeah,
good with all
yeah.
those people. I actually really do want to know. I may not have the resources or connections or solutions for you, but I have a minute of my, soul to give you,
Yeah.
that connection to give you. And if you just feel loved today because I asked you how you were really doing, I feel like I lived my mission in that moment and you lived yours by giving me a real answer. And so I think it's on both sides, the giver and the receiver of the question. You have to be willing to not just give generic questions, generic answers, and you gotta actually ask questions that you want to hear the answers for.
Yeah, and I on the receiving end of getting that question, sometimes I think I've surprised some friends of mine when I've very vulnerably answered.
Yeah.
I don't think they were even trying that hard on their side, but by the result of the conversation that ends up happening,
Yeah.
I don't think they were intentionally trying to create a
Yeah.
safe space. I really think they were just like, "Hey, how's life?" And when I decided, "Okay,
I'm gonna tell you
I'm
how
going to
life
tell you
yeah.
because I don't do this very often because I don't feel safe always, right?"
Yeah.
Particularly as a person who's sort of seen as a listener rather than and a
Yeah.
receiver, most people take advantage of that.
For sure.
So I don't give that much because people have a hard time either holding it or like they turn it around to their story. So when I do, I think sometimes my friends are surprised and then we end up having this really different conversation, text or
Absolutely.
otherwise, right? So I think it can happen on, like you just said, on either side, the person that's intentionally asking or the person that decides to intentionally, answer. One of my favorite uh, sort of anecdotes that I probably read in my life came from a book that I really love by Rabbi David Wolpe, and it's called "Making Last Matter." The book is called "Making Last Matter," and in it, he has this little anecdote where one neighbor says, "Hey neighbor, do you love me?" And the neighbor says, "Of course I love you." And he says, "Well, do you know my pain?" And the neighbor said, "Well, how could I know your pain?" And he said, "Well, how can you love me?" It's
Hmm.
just this small interaction about like what we think. I mean, it's just an encapsulation of what you said about the
Yeah.
people on the street. But when I read that, I really thought, how many people in my life do I know their pain points?
Yeah.
Right. And if we look at people a little bit more through that lens, like I think we see them better and I think we
Oh yeah.
connect to them better and we interact a little differently.
Yeah. And
Right.
you have to assume that people are carrying pain. Like let's stop this nonsense of like people have perfect lives. There's nobody in your circle that has a perfect life,
Yeah.
that doesn't know pain. And that happened. I host these guys' nights, and I host them now on our property because we have a pasture and stuff where we can like just be kids, be boys,
Love that.
riding dirt bikes and getting dirty and home run derbies, stuff like that. But I remember having one of these guys' nights with one of my friends, and he told me that he was going through just a family situation that was exactly like what I was going through, that I was feeling the pain of. He was feeling it too, and we're best friends. We hadn't told each other this for years, and I just thought, okay, here's a reality check here, that my best friend that I know really well, that I've asked him how he's doing for years, I did not know his pain. So I think that pain though, from that moment forward, I thought that was my best friend. Now I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
we are
our souls.
really best friends because we communicate on that level and we check in with each other, even if it's a quick call on the way home from work. And we say to each other, like, how are you really doing? How is this thing that you're feeling pain with? How are you doing with that thing? How can I help? Let's just get together for lunch. I don't have solutions, but let's
Right.
just get together. But everybody has that pain that they're dealing with, and you don't have the solutions, but one
And you keep saying that. I
space
want to
is
say, and
maybe
even
the
if you
solution is the
have,
space
but
for
like,
them,
that's what I'm
right?
saying. Even if you have the solution, like I have said this on a million podcasts that I've been on, maybe not so much on my podcast as the host, but I am absolutely convinced that one of the worst things you can do is offer solutions to somebody,
Yeah.
because that tells them they are incapable of finding it themselves.
Mm,
It unintentionally tells them, right?
mm,
The purpose of sitting with somebody in their pain is not to fix them. It's not to heal them, and it's not to offer them solutions. It's for you to sit with them in
yeah.
it and to blow wind in their sails at least at some capacity, because if they're being vulnerable, if they trust you, that like they have everything they need, or they can find what
Yeah.
they need
Yeah.
inside of them already. They're
Yeah.
they're capable, right? So yeah, like I don't think you need the solutions. And even if
Yeah.
you have them, I'm not sure we should give them, right?
Yeah.
Like the point of it is to just be with them,
Yeah.
right? Be in it with
Fulfill
them.
that need, right?
Yes. And people need that more than anything else, more than any solution or thoughts or how to figure it
Totally
out.
agree.
They just need to be seen.
Yep.
They need to be loved. Okay, so as I just have a couple more questions, but as a person who sort of in the business, both of us, of crafting a really good question to solicit an opportunity to give a good answer. You spend a lot of time, your producers spend a lot of time. I spend a significant amount of time when I come on these podcasts. I'm convinced that as a host or as a person that like the questions that you ask lead people to wherever they're going to go, right? You can be broad or whatever. So I'm curious, Dan, you've been on a bunch of podcasts. You've spoken a lot. You wrote a book. Is there a particular question that you wish more people would ask you, or that they're missing when they sit
Mm.
down with you? That you kind of
Ooh.
leave and you're like, man, they missed a little bit of an essence of me because they didn't ask me this question.
Mm. Man, that's a good one. Um, okay, I got one for you.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really neat if all these people in my community, my circle that I know, that I have these deep relationships with, would just ask me, what do I mean to you? Like, I wish I could just express that,
Yeah.
because all of these people mean so much to me. And maybe it's my responsibility to tell them on a regular basis. But I think in a world where we struggle with self confidence, if you just knew how much you meant to someone and they could be specific about why you mean so much to them, then I think that would solve a lot of our connection issues, our self confidence issues, our just confidence in life about, being able to overcome these obstacles. If you just knew that you meant so much to someone and you knew why you meant so much to somebody.
Yeah, we're gonna test it. You ready? What do I mean to you?
To me, every time I'm with you, I actually, without you even saying something, I know you care about me. And I know you care about probably exactly what I'm going through at that exact moment. And I think that's one of your gifts. That's probably what makes you a great therapist, great podcaster, great friend, because I just know that whatever part of my journey, you proved it today that you pay attention to the details. You remember details of my story that I knew you were there, but I didn't know you actually paid attention to those little things and they were impressionable on you.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's what you mean. You mean you're this person that keeps track of the details because they're meaningful to you, not just because you're trying to put a list of chronological events of when things happened, but because it actually it did something to you.
Yeah.
And then as a result of that experience, you reflected that back on me and I felt loved.
Yeah. I'm going to say to people that are listening that Dan is in their lives, like, take him up on this. I do think that question is hard for people because people have a hard time receiving. We
Yeah.
just talked about this,
Yeah.
right? I think you're not getting people asking, Dan, what do I mean to you? Because people don't like the effusion of
Yeah.
like being seen or heard or loved. We live in a society for some reason that like we're much more used to people giving us critical feedback than we are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put a challenge out there. So people, I know that there's going to be specific people that we share as friends that will listen to this podcast. I'm going to say, please find an opportunity to ask Dan what you mean to him in his life so he can talk about that. I'm going to take this just in a little different direction, but what is a question that you wish more people that you were talking about their story or that you were interviewing or in your life that they would ask themselves?
Hmm. Am I in alignment?
Okay, tell me more.
So for me, people ask me all the time, they still do this. I get this question every week, probably.
Okay.
They're like, I don't know how you do it. How do you do it?
Okay.
And they're seeing from the outside a business owner that's fighting for his life and still running a business, a father that's fighting for his life and still a father, hopefully a good one, right? You'll have to
Of
ask my
course.
kids.
Yeah.
A husband, they see all these roles that I have and they ask, how do you do it? And I always respond with, I'm not an overly positive person all the time. I don't watch YouTube videos that motivate me every morning because I, just have to find motivation somewhere. And motivation is what the key is. No, alignment is what the key is. I found my alignment years before I started this company, years before I went through all the challenges of that. And I've lost everything multiple times since I started this company. It has not been easy. And then all of a sudden my health and all these different challenges. And it's like, it's a huge mountain I got to climb. But every day when the sun rises, AKA my alarm clock going off, I feel this peace inside me that says, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. That to me is more than any motivation I can get from anywhere else. It's this confidence that I have that I'm doing exactly what I feel called to do.
Gosh, and I'm listening from my seat, and I can imagine people listening. That like people wish they could sit there, right?
That
Like
has to be your pursuit in this life. That's why I'm so passionate about this, is because
and you
if
didn't
you
get
could
there
find
easily.
it,
I mean,
no.
let's go back to the beginning of the podcast where you were like, I say this phrase, where you're wandering in the wilderness. This is my phrase. I was like wandering. It sounds like, like I want to emphasize because you're sitting here saying, I feel so purposeful. I just want to be like, remind everybody that's listening that did not come easily. That did not land in your lap. That was lots of micro choices and lots of connections and lots of listening to arrive where you are. And you're saying, do that work.
That has to be like your pursuit in this life is not to find the perfect career, or the perfect spouse, or the perfect children, or, perfect education that will set you on a tone for this perfect plan that's in your head. My plans have not gone according to plan ever. Like I feel like even this week I had plans that I put into place for my company, for my family, and none of them went according to plan. What a gift. That
What an
has driven
opportunity,
me
right?
to my alignment.
Yeah.
Like that has driven me to figure out what I am called to do versus what I thought I was called to do. So you got to shed that. You got to get rid of this idea that your plan is the plan. You have to go through this process on your own of not just ignoring your trials and lessons, but following the inspiration you get along the way to make pivots and constantly listen to that inspiration because it saved my life. So I'm passionate because I found my calling, but I'm also passionate because it allowed me to stay here.
Totally.
And so I think about ignoring all those promptings, all that inspiration along the way, and not taking those risks, my story is very different. It would have played out very differently, and I wouldn't like who I was becoming as much as I do right now.
Yeah.
And my life sucks right now sometimes. Christmas night, I was throwing up.
Mm.
I couldn't stomach the food I had for dinner. I was very sick. I was recently on IVs again. But I woke up the next morning feeling great about my life and who I'm becoming.
Mm.
So if I've learned,
Those can go together,
they
right? This
can.
and that, right?
And if I've
Yeah.
learned anything from my story or all the stories I've told about people is you can like who you're becoming and be going through the hardest experiences of your life, and you can still feel joy.
Yeah, and I want to add, just because this is where I am in my life right now, as somebody who's had a whole career and also sort of sitting in what I call this liminal space. Maybe some people call it your midlife questions. I'm not going to call it crisis. I just call it midlife questions, where I'm like, man, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I'm grown up. I want to say it's okay if in your discovering of that you sort of sit in the not knowing. I almost said the
100%.
other day, I said in a podcast the other day, like, I'm marinating in the unknown.
100%. That's why I love being unemployed.
Yeah.
I finally
Yes,
marinated in the
because
unknown.
I think we have a tendency to want to jump from one frying pan into the next frying pan, right? We're
Yeah.
not really, if I don't know what I want to do, if I can't find, it might feel my purpose directly, then I'm just going to jump to I will just say me. But I think there's a lot of people that relate to me and you. I just will because I can make it happen. I can go get another job. I can go start another project. I
Yeah.
can write another book. It's like I have the capacity to do things. And those things distract from whatever's happening right now. So I, as a personal person who's sitting in my liminal space and trying really hard not to jump out of it, I want to say to people who are also sort of like, I wish I had my purpose, or I wish I knew exactly what I was doing, that like it's okay to be wandering a little bit. I think there's things you can do intentionally in that space to help you get closer to it. But you would never do this shout out, but I'm going to, because it just happens to be that you wrote a book that is called
This is my story.
yeah, and how to do that and how to find your purpose. And so I tend to really want to be like in my podcast, I want to talk about people and I want to give them actual like tools. So if you're sort of lost and you're like trying to figure out what Dan and I are talking about, feel free to go. Where can they get your book, Dan?
Story.com.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on our site. At the very top, it says, buy our book.
Yeah. And this is a good way to like step into some steps and thank you for like breaking that down for people. And it's beautiful. And I of course have it and
Oh,
read it.
thank
So
you.
yeah.
It's possible for everybody, and that's what's funny about my book is I laugh because I thought my book was going to be something else, and it was going to be the process of discovering your story that I found through film and through like almost like a more traditional storytelling thing that all the books already talk about.
Right.
But then I found it needs to be a workbook so people can actually find their
This.
story and do the work to do it. It takes work, but I say rest, recovery, and reflection are success. If you don't have rest and recovery and reflection, you will move to the next thing like I did for many years of my career, hoping that I would just by chance, by being busy, find my mission and calling and find that alignment. It wasn't until I rest, recovered, and reflected to where all of a sudden the inspiration came because I paused to be able to figure out what my next step was. And it's been the most beautiful step of my life.
Yeah.
And it will continue to serve me the rest of my life. I wake up every morning loving my life, even though it sucks sometimes. But that's because I took that time. And for me, it was being unemployed. So whatever it is for you, you have to pause somehow or you'll miss it.
Yeah. Last two questions. Dan, it's 2027, so a year from now. We'll even say January. And you decide or somehow come across this podcast on Spotify, let's just say. What do you hope as you're going to pull it up that you said here? Like, what are you like in reflection or like, man, I hope this came across on this podcast with Kylee and someone finds it. Yeah.
I hope that I actually do listen to my old podcast. It's kind of funny.
Okay.
People were like, oh, that's weird. Why would you listen to your own thing? Because I want to actually see if I grew.
Yeah.
And so in a year from now, I will listen to the podcast.
Okay.
And I will see if there's something in me that's changed since then. some new perspective, some new phase of life that's changed. And so that's what I hope. I hope that in a year's worth of time, I've, my world has been rocked a few more times, and my story would be a little bit different in a year from now. Not easier, different.
Right.
So that's what I would hope, is that I've had some growth that's really obvious. If I was to be interviewed again, I
Yeah.
could share, what happened, but also what I gained from that, and that I still like who I'm becoming, regardless of, you know, wins, losses, or anything in between that has happened.
Yeah, I said two, but I have one more. Is there anything like that I maybe didn't ask or we didn't get to that you'd want to make sure listeners um got from this podcast? Like, is there some words of wisdom or some experience or some question that you would ask them for themselves? You're a deep thinker.
Mm.
I'm sure I didn't capture all the questions that I would love to for you, but is there something that you kind of knew you wanted to say that you didn't get to say?
Oh, that's a great question too, because I mean, I can talk. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I want to. I feel called to share my story, right? But I think for me, it, I hope people that listen to this realize that this isn't Dan's story. This is my story too. And I've realized over the years of telling hundreds of these stories, you can see yourself in someone else's story. They could be. We had a 40-year-old man that watched a film about this mother losing their baby, and this guy couldn't relate to that specific thing, but what she shared, her advice that she shared, he sent that back to me and said that story changed my life.
Yeah.
So don't look at someone's story and say, "Oh, that's not me. I'm not going through that thing," and just have pity for them, or, just soak in the sadness of their story. Look at someone's story and say, what are they going to share that could change my life, that
Yeah.
could sit with me?
What can I
And
learn?
yeah, and try not to just put up that wall, because from face value, it doesn't look like a story that would land with you.
Yeah.
Every story that I've ever told, every story that you've shared with me, anybody around me that shared with me, has changed me in some way.
Yeah.
So look for those opportunities, sit in those stories with people, because you don't know when someone's going to give you that nugget that's a huge investment into your personal bank account that
Yeah.
will change the course of your life forever. And I guess the second thing to answer that question would be finding your alignment. I really do believe it's attainable for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I really do. Like, this isn't some like wishy-washy, like movie. I'm living a really messed up, rocky, difficult life. And if I can find my alignment, I'm pretty sure anybody, I'm just a regular person
Totally.
from a
Regular
regular
awesome
place,
person, I think.
you
But
know?
yes.
But every one of us is an ordinary person that's becoming extraordinary.
And I would just add, because my experience on doing this podcast, specifically honing in on people's connections and belonging, is that I'm still, when I'm asking people, I'm a newer podcast, but I'm like 45 people in. But I still get people's responses when I ask them, "Hey, I would love, you have a great live story. Will you come be on my podcast?" I probably will forever have people be like, "What do I have to offer? Like, what could
Mm,
I say?" If I would just add to what you just said, that everybody has a story to tell, and that
absolutely.
your story matters. And even if you don't see yourself as somebody who's done or becoming or arrived or whatever, like, where you are in your life is important, and stopping and giving people opportunities to tell their story in their messy middle, we sometimes call that,
Yeah,
is a gift, right? And I wish more people saw their story as important and worthy to tell.
yeah,
I find this is one of the saddest things that's happening in my journey, is that people just don't see themselves
100%.
as an important story,
Yeah,
right?
I'll tell you this fast story. We told a story about somebody that had tried to commit suicide 3 different times and survived. And it was a hard story to direct and interview. At the last minute, before we even started rolling cameras, I had this inspiration that came to me that said, we're going to do this very differently. And I pulled my team aside. I said, bag our plans, which is scary on set, because
Yes.
this is a big
Lots of
production that we've
preparation.
already prepared
I
for it.
know
And
how
I
much, yeah.
said, I need a dress shirt, because I want to be in this story with this individual. His name's Sean. And I said, I want you to see me asking the questions. And when he takes us to these different places of his story, I want you to see what he's being asked before he gives his answers. And the team was like, okay, what do we do? I borrowed the storyteller's shirt because we were the same size. We got into his truck. He drove me. One of the most sacred experiences of my life. He drove me up the mountain to where his last suicide attempt was. And our camera operators and our sound people were in the back seat of his truck filming the interaction between me and him. And what unfolded was this beautiful moment where he shared why he feels like he has so much to live for still.
Mm.
We got out of the truck and we were in that place. And it became a sacred place to him, a sacred place to me. And man, those emotions of our team and everybody was like, this is the right way to do this. This is how we're supposed to film this. That inspiration that came that was awkward, uncomfortable, I don't know. We haven't prepared him for that or our team for that. Became this beautiful moment that people have watched maybe millions of times now, and it has changed them. Well, fast forward to when we launched his story, a daughter that had a father that took his life messaged him and said, Sean, because you took me in that truck, you took me on that experience with you, I can forgive my father for taking his life. And that person is able to move forward with joy and hope and love her dad again. Because Sean took me in that truck to that sacred space. And Sean, before we started doing that story, said, I don't know why you're telling my story. I don't have a story. Oh, like hell, you don't have a story. Your story changed me and it changed everybody on that crew. And this ripple effect has gone for millions of miles, I would say.
Yeah.
So if you don't think you have a story, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you right now, you're wrong. You have a story and your experience needs to be shared with others because you just have no idea what kind of freedom that will give somebody once they hear it.
Yeah. Okay, my classic last question. What does belonging mean to you, Dan?
I think it means that you have people around you that mean everything to you, and you surround yourself with those people, and you're that person for them too. I just think you got to create space for that and create time for that. And belonging happens. I'm not saying you have to be together in person.
Totally.
It can happen through a text message. I'm thinking about you, bro. Love you. I've gotten that before, and I feel like I belong. I've sent messages to people and saying, hey, I don't know why, but I just felt inspired to message you. That's it. No solutions necessary other than just some love. So I think that belonging to me means just being willing to put yourself in those positions where you can just be with somebody.
Well, as we end, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about where people can find some of the stuff that you do, and we'll put them in the liner notes. But before we go, I want to say to you personally, I have been greatly impacted by your lived story, both
you.
personally and professionally. But I've been a recipient of that, what you talked about earlier, and I'm so grateful for somebody who doesn't shy away from like their purpose and who they are and their spiritual gifts. It's like very awesome to like where you show up authentically and you're like also not like shrinking from it. As a recipient of somebody who I feel like has been seen and heard and gifted some opportunities and hopefully some in the future of connection and purpose, and you sort of blowing wind in my sails. I hope you feel that I'm doing the same to you and Stiry. But I'm excited for things to come for you personally.
Thank you.
And for some of the people that I really care about, you and your team that I also know really well. And I'm really excited for Stiry. I feel like because I was an early adopter and I've seen so many iterations of it.
Not know what the heck you were doing. Yeah.
Well, I think most people don't really know what they're doing. They're building the train while they're on it, right? Or the plane while they're on it. But already the iterations that you guys have done, I feel like a proud mom. I'm not a mom in the story, but I just feel like a person who's like always known that the good that you guys could do beyond what you were doing, and have been so excited, have been in the seats in the theaters, have come to the awards meetings. I'm stoked for like the more that you guys are gonna do. It's enough. if you didn't do anything else, right? Like we live in a world where it's like, it's enough. You don't have to produce one
Yeah.
more day, Dan, and you'll have done enough good, right? And you're going to keep doing it, and stories are going to keep being told. Where can people find, like, is this all at story.com, or where is the best places for people to find?
Yeah, there's a lot of places. Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that and for being such a, not just a cheerleader, but like a huge advocate, like for us, and helping us feel like we belong and that our work matters. So thank you.
Yes. Yes. Amen.
Yeah. So I mean, people can find us on YouTube,
Okay.
STIRY. So just remember Stories That Stir. On YouTube, we have a lot of stuff on there. We're going to launch a heck of a lot more here soon. So I'm really excited about that. Story.com. And then you can watch 2 of our films on Angel on their streaming
Okay.
app.
So besides Kim's, what's the other one?
Yeah, we just launched another one in October. So we had 2
Okay.
launched on a major streaming platform in 1 year, which we, are thrilled about. So the other one's called The Luckiest Man on Earth.
Oh, I did know that, actually. I did know that. Yeah. Okay.
That was another one that we had great success at a festival, and Angel picked it up, and it's about a high school coach that has ALS that influenced just so many people.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where they can find us. And then Instagram, Facebook, we're everywhere.
Okay.
Just search
on all the
Stiry.
things. We'll put them in the liner notes for sure, and people can come find that later. Thanks,
Yeah, go
Dan.
get some inspiration.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.